be bold and courageous and do not be afraid. That's one of my favorite scriptures in the Bible. I just always love the idea of that's God's command to be bold and to have courage. Because when you get it from that kind of authority, it's almost that's what we're supposed to be doing. And I know if I was to think back to any success I ever had, any wins, any big moments that I remember, I had to be bold. I had to take stock, take courage, and do the thing that I might not otherwise wanted to have done. But what is on the other side of being bold and living a bold life comes great rewards, great riches. And I don't necessarily mean monetary wise in fiscal dollars, but the rewards of who you become as a human being, the way you get to walk around with peace when you're bold. And the opposite of bold is to cower, to step back, to be afraid. And it's a horrible life. It is a horrible way to live. You'll have dreams, aspirations, and you'll have to stuff them all down. There's very little progress when you're not bold. And having progress as human beings, it's just absolutely imperative that we have progress in our lives in some direction. And it doesn't necessarily mean chasing a goal and, get to the mountaintop and then you ask yourself, now what? It's not that kind of progress. It's the progress of getting better at something, becoming more, becoming bigger. And so today we're going to be talking about all things being bold and how to level up and all the things you can do, the mindsets, the tips and tricks. And we're going to jump into that today. When was the last time you were bold, Sean?
That's a great question. So one of the things that I challenge myself on a daily basis is discomfort. Where can I get discomfort today? Where can I embrace discomfort? Because my goal is in order to live bold, is to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And for me, one of the things that I've learned is discomfort is the gateway to growth. And for me, bold is discomfort. So maybe that's the conversation that you need to have, but you don't want to have it. Or the thing that you need to do, the email, the sales call, the conversation with your spouse. And so these things that I'm bringing up have been discomfort for me personally in the last several years. And so on a daily basis, if I'm finding myself either complacent or stagnant or in my comfort zone, immediately to me, that's a red flag and I'm not being bold. Because if you're listening to this and you are stagnated, you are in the same place that you were a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, personally and professionally, are you living a bold life? And I had to ask myself that 3 years ago because authentically and genuinely, I wasn't embracing discomfort in a healthy way for growth. And so now I look at it on a daily practice of where can I show up in discomfort, whether it's my physical body, my mind, my body, my soul, and I create goals personally and professionally that force me to take bold action. Now, for me personally, one of the things that I spend my time on, whether it's conversations or the physicality of challenges like high rocks, marathons, ultras, triathlons, I also do that mentally as well in different areas of life, having hard conversations with my spouse or my assistant or a team member. And is it all perfect and rainbows and sunshines? Absolutely not. Am I perfect at it? Absolutely not. Even to me, being on this podcast, putting myself out there, raw, real, vulnerable, in order to help others see and become the best version of themselves, to me, that is bold. That is discomfort of putting myself out there so strangers can see, so they can criticize, they can share their opinions. To me, that is bold. So if you're listening to this, where can you get discomfort today? I'll share a quick little story and you can transition to your thoughts. Here recently, because I feel like I'm doing things on a daily basis that are discomfort for me, I've been able to pay that forward with the people on my team. And one of my team members, I said, hey, what is something I call shock the system? And And when you shock the system, that's also known as living a bold life, living a discomfort life. Shock the system means, what is something that's discomfort for you, either personally, professionally, physically, emotionally, whatever it may be. Have you been, for instance, have you been to church? No? Okay, cool. If you showed up to church tomorrow, that's discomfort. That is uncomfortable. That is a bold move. Whether you like it or not, it doesn't matter. It's discomfort. And so for this individual here recently, he's ran a 5K, which is a little over 3 miles. And I challenged him, he was going to run another 5K. And we had this identical conversation about getting comfortable, being uncomfortable, shocking the system, and getting yourself out of your comfort zone. He ended up slacking our entire team, our entire office, and said, hey, I signed up for a 10K. Never done entire 10K his entire life. And I asked him a couple days ago, and I said, hey, what made you take that leap of faith? What made you take that bold movement of signing up for a 10K? And he goes, when you said shock the system, when you said get comfortable getting uncomfortable, I resonated with that. Because he was in his comfort zone on a daily basis, doing the same thing, getting just comfortable, being comfortable. And we as human beings, that's how naturally we want to be safe. We want to be coddled. We want to have that certainty to a certain degree. But if you're listening to this, think about the times in your life that has gotten you to where you are today, personally or professionally. Those times that leveled you up and allowed you to be 1% better than that version of you is because you were bold. You got discomfort. That is the gateway to growth.
Yeah, and it doesn't feel good to get uncomfortable because comfort feels good. Not being comfortable does not feel good. So in the mind, the brain almost wants to protect itself. Well, don't do that because it's uncomfortable, danger. It's going to hurt. There could be pain there, whether it's emotional pain or physical pain. You're going to feel that, and the brain says no. It jams up. It's like a bear, but in the corner, and it's just ready to attack. And I think that's where people get overwhelmed, right? They think it's a real bear, but in all reality, doing these things, being bold, running marathons, running 10Ks, 5Ks, making those phone calls that you need to make, posting, they're all expansion things. They all make you grow. They bring things to you. It's a fuel for the future, helps progress. Like I said, comfort, there's not a lot of progress in the comfort zone. We just talked about that being progress has to happen for human beings to feel like they're alive. Because if you're stagnating, it's slow. It's a slow death. And so to me, to tie in even with fitness, there, a lot of people are petrified because they're thinking 10K, but they haven't ran 100 meters in maybe 10 years. So they're thinking impossible. It's almost like death in their minds, but it's not. That's overwhelm. That's thinking about the end product and not thinking about any of the progress or the action steps you'd have to take. And so I think breaking it down is one of the main keys. Once you do that first 100 meters, and I encourage everyone just to put your shoes on, and that might even be scary to put your running shoes on, but that's one small step, right, that you would need to do to be able to run a 10K. And when you break it down into those small steps, the fear starts to go away. And that very thing you were afraid of, running 100 meters, I guarantee there's not a person in the planet that runs 100 meters and doesn't say, I feel better. I feel better after that versus sitting on the couch. And so to me, yeah, being bold, taking that action, it's the only way to create progress. It's the only way to do it. And having that catalyst and having you as that conversation, right? It's bold for to even hang around with other people doing those things, and it's only a matter of time until you start doing them as well. Because I don't think he would have done that if he hadn't have been having that conversation with you. And so it almost, once you've committed to put yourself out there, you do have to go to step one. What do I have to do next? Well, I have to do this, right? Whatever that thing is, there's always going to be that first step, and that's the only one you need to focus on, and the rest will take care of itself. So I say all that to say, uh, don't let don't let being bold hold you back, right? Don't think about the overwhelming outcomes that you might seem impossible to, just think of something that you this would be for me. Think about who you would be if you did that thing already. What does the version of you look like that has done that? And everyone can take 10 seconds to imagine, I would look like this, I would be feeling like that, and I'd be doing these things. And then that's the key right there. What things is that version of you that they had to do to get there? And then think about those. And then, because that is whatever you thought, that's possibility. That is what you can do because it's in your realm of thought process. And so, yeah, I love to hear that. If when I think of him sign up for the 10K, everything I just said, that whole thought process went through his mind, and now he's executing out here in reality. And that's bold. That's beautiful.
Yeah, which leads into setting goals, setting audacious goals. Like that story that we shared with this individual, setting a 10K, like you said, to somebody listening to this that hasn't run 100 meters, that's an audacious goal.
Mm-hmm.
For somebody that's ran a 5K but hasn't ran a 10K, that's an audacious goal. And so it's one size fits all. And I think a lot of times, a quick note, context behind this, so many of us, we compare ourselves to other people's goals. And so one of the things that I like to challenge individuals is, what is a goal for you in these different areas of life? And I write this down every single week on the different areas of life. What goal do I want to achieve this week in this area of life? And so, for example, one of the things that's important for me in aligning my activities and my actions on a daily basis is aligning my goals with leadership, with the different skill sets that I want to inquire, that I want to learn. And one of the things that I want to level up in, that's a big goal of mine, is building relationships, networking, something that I've used to be very intentional about and create a lot of activity behind, that got me to where I wanted to go. Well, one of the things that I've realized recently by looking at these audacious goals is that what got me to where I was and am today is not going to get me to where I wanted to go. And the question I had to ask myself with the goals and how I was achieving those goals is, am I doing the same activities and the same actions that I did 5 years ago that got me to those relationships, meeting new people? And the answer was no. So I had to go back and get uncomfortable and get back to that it's aligned with my daily activities and my daily actions with my goal and who I wanted to become in leadership. Well, what does leaders do? Leaders, they learn from others. Iron sharpens iron. They network with others. They're intentional about phone calls, meetings, these different coffee shops. And to a certain degree, I stopped doing that. So for me, setting a goal of meeting with somebody on a weekly basis, it allowed me to break backwards. Okay, who can I reach out to that's doing this better than I am currently right now, and ask them a number of questions, preparing and ask them different questions that they maybe haven't asked to. So for me, that's an audacious goal of networking and building relationships and being intentional, because that takes time, that takes energy, that takes glycogen, that takes cortisol, that takes all this going on in my mind to network and build these relationships with these individuals, because I set that goal of leadership, of empowering, of influencing with others and learning from them so we can impact and multiply more people.
Could you give it, because it's you just have decided this? Could you give an example of your thought process of getting uncomfortable, kind of the emotions and feelings, and then the actions you took, like just as an example of what it looks like out here in reality of being bold?
Yeah. So for me, so just so I understand your question, you want me to share the action steps?
Yeah, or just what was the thought process that linked to your actions, right? Because you said it was uncomfortable, that getting back into this, and I know exactly what you mean, because it's because doing that, there's all the things you just said you have to do.
Yeah.
And that can jam the brain up. That's kind of like we're talking earlier, like, oh, that's not in the normal wheelhouse of what I'm doing. I've done it before, but this is every human being. This is the process. To me, like, you had to select the person that you want to talk to. You had to make the call. What was your? I know it sounds very rudimentary, real basic, but everything we're talking about, it is just little action steps, little basic movements, dealing with emotions at the same time, and then taking action on it. Like, kind of what was your when you said, oh, it's gonna be, I've got to get uncomfortable and get back to doing this. What was kind of the sequence of events? What was the
Yeah.
sequence of events and your feelings, emotions around it? This is an example.
Yeah. So when I was setting the goal, because I used to set the goal, and the goal wasn't aligned with who it is that I wanted to become.
Mm,
So if I wanted to become a leader, and these were the different areas of leadership that I wanted to improve in, or multiply, or surround myself with, I just got super clear on the types of individuals that I either wanted to take to lunch or go to coffee with, or that I was going to be surrounding myself with. Whereas before, prior to that, I was just building networks and relationships from an agenda standpoint of,
mm,
hey, let's do business. You send me business, I'll send you business, or let's build each other up. It was never a, hey, let's set this goal, Sean, and be super diligent and
mm,
intentional about who we're meeting with, because this person that we're going to be meeting with not only will be iron sharpens iron, but it's in relation to they're in a leadership role as well. And my goal, my job, I feel like I'm put on this earth is to not only be a servant leader, but to also support this other individual that I see
mm,
potential in leadership. And that's what iron sharpens iron is. So he can learn from me, I can learn from him, or she can learn from me, I can, and she can, and vice versa. And so by being intentional about that, we can seek opportunities, seek counsel from each other, understand different perspectives, understand different perceptions, lenses of the world, because I know that people are struggling like I was as leaders, and they want or need that support, that leadership, and that guidance, just like I do. And from what I have found, it's an epidemic out there with people struggling. So when you build other leaders, we need leaders out there. So when we set these audacious goals and create products and create services like Level Up and Live, the leadership people that spend their time, energy, and effort on that, we get to serve more people. We get to multiply the effect of that, because that is what we spend our time, energy, and effort on. Sure, Sean can impact 1,000 people, 10,000 people, but Sean and Ewan can impact 20,000 people. But Sean, Ewan, and Isaiah can impact 50,000. But Sean, Ewan, Isaiah, Micah can impact 100,000.
mm.
So the audacious goal is, I want to spend my time and energy effort not only building and developing leaders, myself included, but also how can we multiply that by impacting more people and serving more people in our community that listen to us on the podcast, that surround ourselves with the product and the services, and work backwards. And it all starts with building that foundation of finding the right people in the right seats with the
Mm.
right strategic partners, the right leaders to get to where you want to go.
Yeah, if I was to sum that up and to play it back from the start to where you started there to where you ended up was, who are the people? Okay, so you wrote some names down and you ended up saying the words, and then we could impact 100,000 people, right? So like that boldness you took by reaching out to that one person and having that conversation, right, which would be uncomfortable. There's risk involved. Could say no, or it could be an awkward conversation. That's why it takes boldness, right? You did that, and the purpose behind it, right? When you say things like, "Man, we could impact the masses," that allows you to be bold when you take that action up front to ask that person out to go have coffee, to go have that conversation, to be with another leader, to build him up, and like you said, to learn something yourself. And so, yeah, to me, that is the epitome of being bold with purpose. You had a reason behind it, and all rising tides lifts all ships. And yeah, it's a beautiful story, and it ties in with everything we're talking about.
Yeah. Well, and what's the goal? What's the goal, and why is it important to you? Because you can go and come up with dozens of goals, but is the
Yeah.
goal aligned with who it is that you want to become, and is the why important enough for you to align with your actions and your values and your beliefs?
You also
And
said something really. I had to jump in there. Like you also said it. When you used to do it, it used to be with very much of an agenda for business.
yeah,
Which is nothing wrong with that. That's great. But I think one of the key things about being bold, it has to be authentic. It has to be
right.
true and
And here's
genuine.
why not.
And you are that.
Here's why, because I felt like I had to do that. See, a lot of
Mm,
people, I think they feel like they have to do stuff. They're obligated, they're
yes.
responsible. That's my task, that's my job.
Yeah.
Well, the problem is it's not aligned with who you're wanting to become, your beliefs and your values. And that's why there's a disalignment. That's why there's a disconnect.
Yeah, you're pushed when you feel like I have to. It's my job.
Right.
When it's your purpose and there's this audacious goal, like this beautiful thing behind it, you're drawn to it. You're
Yes.
compelled, as opposed to forced with a push of, well, if I don't do it, this will happen. As opposed to, you're not even thinking about it if you don't. You're just thinking about what will happen if you do, and that's a great sign of how to take that leap of being bold. And it's really good to hear that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that.
And that leads me into immediate action. A lot of people, they want to be perfect. They have to come up with this long, drawn out, business plan, game plan. And there's nothing wrong with any of that. You want to be strategic behind it. You want to have the game plan behind it, and you want to have some kind of ideation. But if I don't take action on reaching out to these individuals in preparing, then what happens from my experience is that you do not take action, and you just prolong the process. You procrastinate, you figure out, and you do something else. If you say you're going to do something, then do it. And so, not for anybody else, but for yourself. And so,
Mhm.
it's speed over for perfection for me. And so, I can sit here and draw out like, well, I don't know if it's makes sense to reach out to this person. I'll never know until I actually do, but I'll learn because I have that audacious goal of of ultimately what I'm trying to do. And that's just a stepping stone to get to where I want to go. And so by taking that action, that I have found is that you're going to learn along the way uh, to get to where you want to go.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you do that consistently over time. It becomes your norm. It becomes the normal at some point. I know for you, it's there's probably still some thought process and fear behind it. To maybe it's the fear's the wrong word, but you're so used to doing it, you just kind of do more of it. It's your norm to step out. And I heard this one time. I mentioned a bear earlier. If you had a bear that was, let's say you're in an apartment complex or your apartment's in there, and there's a bear chained at the end of the corridor, and when he gets out to that full length of the chain, he's only 1 foot from your door, your where you live, where your house is, and he can't, his claw as far as he can reach, and this thing will kill you. It will absolutely shred you to pieces. But he's 1 foot away from the door. If that chain was to break, you're dead. You're gone. But so the first, how would you feel, right? There's a bear, ravenous, massive, big teeth, things 13 feet tall. The first time you go into your house, you are going to be freaked out. There's a bear there, and it doesn't matter. You know that the chain stopping him from getting you. You would be edging into that door, opening it, and sliding past to make sure you're as far away as possible. Second time you do it, still going to be immense fear. You're just going to be freaking out. If you do that week after week after week, knowing that the bear cannot touch you, can't hurt you, at some point you're just going to walk up to the door, unlock it, and maybe even wave at the bear because you've gotten used to it. You've gotten acclimatized, and because you've taken the action, right, and gone past the fear point and knowing it doesn't hurt. But now you have this peace, and now you can do what used to petrify you. Now you do it without any fear at all because it's your new normal. And so when you do these things confidently, action with confidence over and over, It becomes your new normal. And then people will look at you, and I know people look at you and you're like, how are you doing that? How are you able to pull that off? And you're like, well, it's just my normal now because you've done it so much. You earned the right to feel at peace, taking very bold and scary action. And I know the times for me when I've been at my best, and when I'm at my best today, it's when I just feel I'm in my zone of boldness that I've earned through all the action that I've taken. And there's still areas of life where I've not taken enough action to where I don't feel bold, but I know it's there. I know the bear is there, and I know the bear's not real. And so I lean on past experience, knowing just keep doing it until this is the new norm. And then I'm looking for, and this is the weird part, now I'm looking for a new bear. I need to go find where's that next bear where I'm afraid of so I can make that my new normal too. Because each time you do, you're leveling up. Your level of confidence, your level of boldness becomes the standard. And then you have to become more bold. And it's a great journey. Very exciting.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing you say is the resilience. For me, that's kind of the final key point is resilience. You can have all these others, but if you're not resilient in that approach, for me, I look at failures are just lessons. It's
Mm,
not failure is a looked down word. It's
yeah.
if you're cheating in school, or then you're a failure. If your business is not to where you want to go, then you're a failure. If you're not, so I think we can be super harsh on ourselves as human beings. One of the things I've learned in my journey is giving yourself grace and compassion in this journey of developing that resilient mindset. I'm not as resilient as you, and I'm not as resilient as Sean, Kendra. I'm not as resilient as these individuals. I'll never make it. And so that's the story that we're telling ourselves. And so look at it from a graceful, compassionate, loving way of, hey, I can develop this resilient mindset by putting one foot in front of the other. And failures are just a lesson. And so by living boldly through this journey in this mindset, to me, what I've learned is this is what actually separates the bold leaders from the rest, is how we view and bounce back from the failures.
Mm,
Bold leaders separate themselves in how they view and bounce back from the failures.
mm,
So instead of allowing it to stop me, for me, I treat it as this is just a stepping stone. That's the way I frame my mindset. This is a stepping stone to who it is that I want to become, into AKA success. Resilience is all about bouncing back and getting stronger after each setback.
mm,
For example, if you're launching a new product or launching a new service, and in your mind, you've got this audacious goal, you're living boldly, you're taking failures, you're doing all these different things, and you're ready to launch this product and service, and immediately you don't get the traction you had hoped for. So instead of scrapping the idea and going, you know what, it just doesn't work, I'm not cut out for it. No, bold leaders, strong leaders are going to take this failure as a stepping stone. They're going to analyze what went wrong, and then they're going to adapt their approach, because their why, because their vision and who they're trying to become and who they're trying to impact and serve is greater than the failure itself.
mm.
And for me, this is how you keep moving forward, no matter the obstacles. So any setback, any challenges that you face, understand that, hey, this is just a stepping stone. It's God's rejection. I like to say this: God's rejection is God's protection.
Mhm.
If you're experiencing failure in personal or professionally, all that tells me is that it's God's rejection for God's protection, for your protection. What
Mm,
that means is you keep putting one foot in front of the other. You keep showing up. You keep looking at failure as this is just data, as you like to say, Ewan,
mhm.
but you keep moving forward and analyzing what went wrong and adapt your approach. That is how you get that resilient mindset.
It's beautiful, man. Yeah, I think if anyone takes anything away from today, if they could do just one thing bold, maybe one thing that's been putting you off, just something small, doesn't have to be massive, just maybe one thing, see how you feel, and uh, shoot to lose, shoot for the failure, right? Because it's not failure, like Sean said. It's information, it's feedback. It lets you know. Uh, that what you need to do next, and see it from there. If you need support, and reach out to us. We'd be happy to talk to you, give you encouragement, give you counsel, ask a question, happy to answer it. Or if you have just something to add on to it, man, we'd love to hear it. So yeah, thanks for listening today. Be bold and courageous. Sean, any final words?
Yeah, man, just surround yourself with bold leaders, bold influencers. You're all a leader. Anybody listening to this, the Level Up and Live podcast, like Ewan said, you all are wanting to be 1% better than you were yesterday. We are on this journey together. And for me, you're doing the right thing, taking the right steps by being on this podcast and surrounding yourself with bold influencers. When you elevate your circle and you surround yourself with individuals that are wanting to serve and impact and make a difference, not only in your own life, but in others, your kids' lives, your spouse's lives, your communities, your churches, and where you show up in your work, then you can do that and you will see exponential growth. You will multiply that, and it will only elevate to where you want to go.
Beautiful. On that
Awesome,
note,
man.
level up and live.
Level up and live.